change.
Working on radical social change.
To dialogue together.
To dialogue together.
We will be holding these monthly.
We will be holding these monthly.
What we're going to try to do is break out into a bunch of small groups where we will all have the opportunity to engage in deep discussion and think about building the movement in terms of the issues that we face, that we fight against, and in terms of the world that we're trying to create.
But I actually feel like if we are talking about actual organizing work, that it shouldn't be filmed.
All right.
Say that again?
Filmed.
It shouldn't be. If we're actually talking about like details of doing organizing work, like I don't feel comfortable with that type of discussion being filmed.
All right. This could you tell me if you're actually going to talk about action? Maybe if you're going to actually go say any details, would you tell me so I could maybe stop filming or something? Would that be a good compromise, or would you just
I think that us like facilitators, if one person doesn't want it, then we can't have it.
Yeah. Would that be a good compromise, or this?
I think that's really complicated.
The media is extremely important. It opens doors to people. It's extremely important. The media is extremely important. It opens doors to people. It's extremely important.
Me, right now we have one shot. In November, we need a write-in vote for real human beings that will work for the people, that are not 1% puppets. And that means we can't have anybody that's a major party nominee at this point in the White House next year or in any congressional district. And we have to take every congressional district and the White House with a write-in vote for real human beings.
To me, a boycott it's already too late because we're only 6 months away from the national presidential election. To me, a boycott of the national election would be what I would be for, but
Absolutely opposite.
no, I think it's time to say screw it. We're not going to take the two jerks. No more of the lesser of two evils. That's the, but it's all. This is all about power, and a slogan would be "Return democracy," something of that nature.
Everyone's coming at it from a different place. If you're a student, it's student loans. If you just lost your home, it's home foreclosures. If you're a wage slave, it's the minimum wage. So everyone's coming at it from a different place, and so is economics. So please leave it open and allow people to bring to the table what their economic issue is, because it's all for all of us. It's an economic issue.
And it's part of a long campaign. It's not going to be an easy one. There are lots of major forces that are against it, but we think that the Occupy movement has become very important in making it possible for people to start not just simply on their knees before Congress, but beginning to try to organize themselves together to make our demands known in a very powerful way. I want to also say that the way in which this campaign can help the Occupy movement is that many who are not in the Occupy movement are not here because of student debt. And if indeed it's possible for us to begin to generate a community of debtors who will begin to fight the conditions of their illegitimate debt, well, we think that it's going to transform itself into political action around the country. So we're part of Occupy, but we also think that Occupy will get much from us. So.
I'm a professor at college in Staten Island, but I was a music teacher for many years. And I started getting concerned about the reduction of what was happening in K through 12 from this sort of broad preparation for citizenship and a democracy down to this sort of reduction of life to multiple choice questions.
So I'm going to suggest, because probably you all are going to remember very little of what any one particular person says, that the less you say, the more people are likely to remember what's most important. So try, as everybody's coming to do your report backs, try and get the top 3 things, maybe 5, that you want everybody in this group to know.
So
develop a strategic approach.
To develop a strategic approach.
To raising taxes on the rich.
To raising taxes on the rich.
And enacting budgets that serve the 99%.
And enacting budgets that serve the 99%.
We focused on three things.
We focused on three things.
We need to build structures and communication systems.
We need to build structures and communication systems
that allow Occupy Wall Street to partner.
That allow Occupy Wall Street to partner
with unions, community-based organizations,
with students, community-based organizations, students,
and everyone.
And everyone.
We also need to remember that a root cause of the problem of unfair taxes.
We also need to remember that a root cause of the problem of unfair taxes
is money in politics.
Is money in politics.
We need publicly financed elections.
We need publicly financed elections.
We also need to take advantage of the opportunity.
We also need to take advantage of the opportunity
to build this movement and to bring creative direct actions.
To build this movement and bring creative direct actions.
To bear on campaigns for a better tax policy and more fair budgets.
How do budget cuts?
How do budget cuts?
And taxing the rich.
And taxing the rich.
Fit into the broader movement.
Fit into the broader movement.
We should try.
We should try.
To clearly connect.
To clearly connect.
Budget cuts and taxes.
Budget cuts and taxes.
To the 99%.
To the 99%.
Quality of life.
Quality of life.
Talk about budget cuts.
Talk about budget cuts.
Within local communities.
Within local communities.
Explain how they are affected by these issues.
Explain how they are affected by these issues.
Start debates.
Start debates
about budgetary priorities.
About budgetary priorities.
Such as
war,
prison,
poverty,
education, healthcare,
etc.
Talk about the increasing privatization. Of previously public services. And about austerity. And about union busting. Within the public sector. Coordinate effectively. With standing organizations. Have been working on these issues. Be able to mobilize. Immediately and effectively. As a unified front. When issues come up in the public eye. Relating to taxes and budget cuts. New York State, like 20 some other states, has a single payer bill, and that means a publicly financed universal healthcare system. It covers everyone. A lot of us have worked very hard on that bill. It's been rewritten, it's been improved. Lobby Day, May 8th, Albany. We have bands from the Bronx, from Brooklyn, from Manhattan. I have flyers. Please come see me. Think 3. Another campaign that a lot of healthcare for the 99% people have put a lot of energy into is to fight local hospital closings in Brooklyn, in Manhattan, in Queens, all over the city.
We talked about occupation.
Our
conversation was half nostalgia.
And
half looking forward. We talked about what worked at Zuccotti. And what we consented on was the idea of mutual aid. Was really central to what was happening at Zuccotti. And we would like to see mutual aid continue to be an essential part of anything that calls itself an occupation. In terms of Occupy Wall Street.
We in the housing group
Want to build
an education campaign on housing issues and broaden the conversation to renters' rights and talk about alternative and other nonprofit forms of housing, and to change the conversation about housing from an investment for profit to a basic human need.
We talked specifically about involvement in the movement.
We talked specifically about involvement in the movement.
In particular, barriers to involvement.
In particular, barriers to involvement.
Especially for those who are undocumented.
Especially for those who are undocumented.
Including availability of documents in a native tongue.
Including availability of documents in a native tongue.
Translation at meetings and events.
Translation at meetings and events.
And certain safety and risk issues at actions.
And certain safety and risk issues at actions.
Our group felt
that
unless those were made central, Occupy and in general this movement would have a difficult time including folks who are immigrants.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
I hope this was really productive. As you mentioned earlier, the next movement assembly is going to be on Sunday. May 13th. At Judson Memorial. Church. At 5 p.m. It's going to be part networking. Part potluck. And part dance party. So